Here come the drums. Here they come. Yeah. Collaboration. November 9th. Here in Chicago. We're having a lovely November. Uh-oh. Except for that presidential election earlier in the week. Oh, hello and welcome to Collaboration Radio. We're here at the six corners of art, activism, and social change, and we have a very special show for you today. Thank you for joining us here on WCPT 820 AM, Chicago's progressive talk radio. We're also streaming live on Facebook and WCPT.com. And actually, that's not true because we're filming a day early, taping a day early. But we are going to have a video of this show that will be available on YouTube. And that's Collaboration's YouTube. So you can check it out because we have a very special guest today. So special that we broke the schedule to make time for a very special friend of mine and the company's. And we'll get to that in just a minute. You probably know that because you see the name of the podcast. But I'm Anthony Mosley. That's who I am. And I'm the artistic director of Collaboration. And Collaboration is a 28-year-old nonprofit multimedia company. We use theater, film, radio, and more to build knowledge, empathy, and dialogue and action around our most important social issues. And boy, do we have a lot of important social issues to talk about these days. But we're going to go even beyond social issues today. And we're going to talk about art making. We're going to talk about the artist. And we're going to talk about the perspective of the artist. And we're going to talk about the beginning days of Collaboration. And so just hold on and get ready for an amazing episode. Collaboration Radio is sponsored by the Joseph and Bessie Feinberg Foundation, an amazing Chicago foundation that supports other great organizations and causes. We're so grateful for the support of the Feinberg Foundation. Also, today's episode is sponsored by AV Chicago, Chicago's leading provider of AV production and event management services. And if you have an event coming up and you need great lights and video and sound, call AV Chicago and ask for Jeremy and tell him that Kimberly sent you, and he will give you the best deal he can. We're also sponsored by a new sponsor. We're super excited, very apropos, that our first show sponsored by the Ruth Page Center for the Arts is today because of our special guest and her prominence in the arts world and the performance world. The Ruth Page Center for the Arts is an incubator of artistic energy. The Center of Chicago's dance history, the Ruth Page Center for Arts carries forward the mission and vision of its founder, legendary dance icon Ruth Page, to be a platform for developing great artists and connecting them with audiences and community. And they have the Nutcracker 2024 coming up at Governor State University from November 23rd to the 24th. And then they go over to Northeastern Illinois from December 7th and December 8th. And then they'll be at the College of Lake County December 21st with a show at 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. and December 22nd. So 'tis the season to do some Nutcracker with the family. And our friends at Ruth Page have 3 different locations that you can check out. So, just type in Ruth Page Nutcracker into the old internet machine and go check out their work. After the show today, if you feel impassioned and you want to join the conversation, you can email radio@collaboration.org or go to www.collaboration.org to learn more. If you have a PSA you'd like to send our way, if you're a nonprofit aligned with our mission, we're happy to share your communications with the world. And if you want to buy an ad and support the show like AV Chicago and the Ruth Page Center for Dance, you can do that too. Quick updates from the Collaboration front. We had our gala this past weekend, the Utopian Ball, and it was amazing. We blew our goal out of the water. We raised over $200,000. Yeah, and the room was packed. And I'm kind of glad we had the gala before the election, because a lot of our community is scratching their heads. But I'm here to say nothing changed. Reality is the same. Donate your time and your money and your energy, but do not let politics take your peace of mind away from you. And it took me 8 years to learn that. But, we gotta get up every day, and we gotta work to make the world a better place. And that doesn't, no election really changes that. But the Utopian Ball was incredible. Thank you to all of our sponsors and donors, especially our friends over at Evoke, who helped produce the event, and AV Chicago. And we gave some Our House Awards out to Evan Williams and John Clark of Cordigan Clark Architects, Lee Dixon of Bomb Reality, and Ryan Branford won the Artist of the Year Award. And Ryan's been filming and editing a lot of video content for us over the last 2 years. So congratulations to all those folks. And that money is, some of it is going to our new House of Belonging in the Kimball Art Center, which we hope to have open in early 25. If you've been listening to the show through these last 65 episodes, we're in the process of building a new space that'll be a very flexible studio for theater and digital productions and dance and film screenings. And then we're going to have a bar with a cabaret theater. And we will be doing youth programming out of that. And we're also going to be really supporting the community with social services. So our door will be open, and we're building partnerships with mutual aid organizations, with Alderperson Fuentes, and more. So that's all happening. And then on Monday, we're going to be announcing a very special show. I can't tell you about it yet. It would be premature. But it'll be January 4th, and it'll be at a famous venue across the street from Wrigley Field. And it'll be really cool. And we'll tell you about it next week, but get ready for that. So, drum roll, please. On this episode of, we'll do that post. On this episode of Collaboraction Radio, I'm super stoked to be talking with my longtime friend, collaborator, and the founder of Collaboration some 28 years ago, the one and only Kimberly Senior.
Thank you, Anthony.
Wow. Hi. Yes. Stars aligned, and we got in the studio together. Two very busy people. Kimberly may be more busy than I. She's a freelance director whose award-winning work has been seen in 15 states in over 200 productions. She's directed the Broadway production of the Pulitzer Prize Tony-nominated Disgraced by Ayad Akhtar, and Kimberly directed the HBO special Chris Gethard's Career Suicide. And her work in audio has ranged from Marvel's The Wastelanders to C13's Ghostwriter. She's a member of the Goodman Theater's Artistic Collective and has taught at a number of universities. Kimberly currently runs the MFA directing program at Brooklyn College, and her first book, What Would a Person Do?, is available on Amazon. And we're going to talk about the book and her career and her life. She's a proud union member of SDC and even prouder mother of Noah and Delaney. You can go to kimberlysenior.net to learn more. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Some 28 years in the making.
I'm just listening to all that you were saying and all that's going on, and the wide like net and web that has become Collaboration is just, I'm beaming. I can't believe how incredible all the work is that you're doing, and to hear about how successful Utopian Ball was, and just how far your reach is, and how exponential, like, not only the growth of the organization, but how many lives you touch and how many conversations you've gotten started in these 28 years is, like, truly mind-blowing.
It's surreal. It really is. And I don't think I have any capacity to really appreciate it right now.
That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to give you, like,
Yeah.
I'm coming in from outer space here,
yeah,
you know, and I'm like
yeah.
looking down and I'm like, wow.
Well, and I have two amazing co-leaders now,
Yes,
Beverly
that's incredible.
Dines and Darlene Jackson, who, have you met them?
Yes, I have.
You met Beverly
Yeah.
at the Walder event.
Right, at the Platform Awards,
Yes.
where Sandra was honored. But no, didn't I also meet Darlene? Anyway, maybe.
Most likely. They're amazing. And it's really the beginning of a new era. This is, I think it's the 9th era of Collaboration when I break up down the eras. But you started the first era.
But the ability to like change and grow and shape, like when you think about our institutions, be they academic or artistic or political, I think that like the ability to adapt and be flexible and respond to the world around us and to be constantly asking questions, it's a really brave space to be in, because I think society tells us like, figure out who you are and just like be that way. And I mean, I loved what you were even saying about the election. It's like, one presidential election doesn't define us, you know, and that the work is always there to be done, no matter who our president is. And part of that is about that chameleon-like ability to sort of mutate and be malleable. And like, I just think that when we see so many of our institutions crumbling or failing us, it's because their inability to have that type of adaptability, that Collaboration being in its ninth form, you know, I mean, I think you remember this quote, but my parents, who've been together since they were 14 years old, after my marriage did not last, I said to my mom, I don't know how you're able to do this. And she said, oh, I've been in 10 marriages. They've just all been to your father. And so I feel like and they're still going strong, and that ability is really beautiful about how we continue to like meet one another and ask who we are and what it is that we need and what we have to offer, is really beautiful. So kudos to you in having that, the resilience, but also the bravery to continue to reshape yourself.
Thank you. At some point I started saying Collaboration itself is a devised piece of theater.
Yeah,
like
good.
The company is a piece that we're writing together in the moment. And we have an idea of where we want to go, but we also have the freedom and the courage to change and say, oh, I was wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like, or we didn't know everything we know now.
No,
and you're
living document.
Yeah. And to that thing about, you know, your parents, you know, I there's something I saw on social media that had me in tears, and it was kind of like the thing about having a child. Is that you know, we have kids that are late teens, and you don't take the time to say goodbye to those different versions of them. Like they just in these you have, you know, these little metamorphoses that happen every, you know, well, as they get older, every, you know, 18 months or 2 years, and next thing you know, like those little people are gone, and there's like 10 different versions of them, and then they're like an adult, and I guess they continue to evolve like we do, but and this is one of the things you talk about in your book, right, which is just about the gift of the moment and of life, and every day and every morning, and at its core, I think that's what Collaboration is trying to do, is to slow down and be grateful for just being. Because, you know, the odds of being born healthy are 1 in a trillion. So the odds of 2 people meeting and connecting is 1 in a trillion to the second power. And then you get a cast for a show. You know, we each have 40,000 ancestors behind us, and the odds that we would all come together here in this city and in this country, it's all a miracle, you know. So,
and I do want to speak to all that too, though, because you could be an ever-changing organism and also be like a mess, And I think there's something, and I also speak to this in the book, this idea of values. And so you maybe have the ability to sort of like gaze off into the horizon with like some idea of who you'd like to be, but knowing you haven't met that person yet, but that there's something about knowing who you are and a confidence, both Collaboration, the institution, and the people inside of it, about what are our values, where do we operate from, what is important to us, and how does that help us carry this torch into the future. And I feel like that's also something that, in constantly revisiting that question and understanding to what tenet do we hold dear, and what guides us, also feels like the institution's really being held by something that feels very values driven, and that's really difficult to achieve. And it also speaks to raising children too, right? They're all their little iterations of themselves.
Yeah.
But there's a thing about like, who are you at this core? What is our essence that feels like, yes, there's like a mutability to who we can be, but that this essence of our children, of our institutions, and of ourselves, the firmer that foundation, the greater we can travel.
Well, my mother says, that she feels inside she's the same person she was when she was 16. Like there's a 16-year-old inside of us. And I often especially, with the gray beard,
Yeah.
I'll see myself and I'll go, oh yeah. I've always been, thought I looked different than I did over my many looks.
Yeah.
And it's probably many looks. But so let's before we talk about your awesome new book and other things that you have going on, I'd love it just to let you share with our listeners, and there's a 8,000 word article written by Jack Helbig in New City magazine that came out. That's great. And you could find that online, and Kimberly was interviewed for that. But just, if you could just talk a little bit about the moments before you started Collaboration, and then the early years. And what's so cool about the company is that, if your name is Dennis, you're more likely to become a dentist. It's true.
Really?
Like, yeah. Like if you have.
Malcolm Gladwell tell you that?
Well, yeah, probably. There's a direct correlation between your name and your occupation. And like if you and like certain names are more likely to, facilitate or grow into becoming leaders.
My name, I think, does mean leader or ruler.
Kimberly?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's correct.
Yeah. Well, and
I don't think it's why I was named that, but yes.
Well, it's there's a whole study of and data around it, but you named us Collaboration, and in the very beginning it made a lot of sense, and then there was a period where it made less sense, and then there was a period where all of a sudden it was like, oh, we actually really became.
Yeah, in a weird way, it sort of ended up being exactly, not exactly, because I couldn't have imagined it, right? Do you know what I mean? It's a thing that I didn't realize
did you, though? Or
existed.
did your intuition or your past lives, this is the thing, right? And especially when you're talking about social action.
Yeah.
Right? Like activism. Like that was not in the cards early, but we've grown into it. And had you named the company the Cool Kids, which is what we thought we were.
It's always been like by the people, for the people, right? That was my response,
And your trip to India.
Yeah, it was that when I moved to Chicago, I hadn't gone to school here and I hadn't grown up here, so I didn't have people. But I was really enchanted by the theater scene here, and there were so many theater companies, and I would go to them and then be like, oh wow, oh you all went to college together, cool. Everyone was kind of. They were making stuff that was great, but it was also stuff that was for them. And I was like, who's making theater just for the people? What would happen if we weren't a company that only did Shakespeare or only did X or only did Y? What if we did a little bit of everything so that no matter who you are, there'll be something for you. The idea was if you hate this play, maybe you'll like the next one because it's definitely going to be different. and that it was the eclecticism, if that's a word, was like what was most interesting to me. And it was very inspired by being in India and feeling like it was like the most alive I ever felt because it felt strange. I mean, this is a little bit me in retrospect, thinking about like it was so foreign to me. And so it required me to be like alert and awake to the world around me in a way that I couldn't like zombie through. And so that became a guiding principle in the art that I wanted to make, that like things always felt new, and that things, to allow things to feel like at once strange and inviting. And so when I came back here, I was like, it's time for me to find my people. And so, as the legend has it, there was an ad placed in the newspaper. We gathered at a coffee shop, and it was a bunch of strangers who were
And wait, who was at the first?
Weren't you there?
No, I got cast in Beyond Therapy.
Well, Mark Hicks was there.
No, he wasn't.
No, he wasn't there?
No, you did
Who
did 2
was
shows
there?
before we showed up. Well, you did...
wasn't there someone named Tom?
Tom McNamara.
Okay.
who directed the 3rd show, Beyond Therapy, which I was cast as
So
the
I think
understudy.
it was Tom McNamara, Una Kersey, and Liza Williams, who had been my roommates. Was Lily Fortin there?
No, that was all Stephen Ivers Studio people that came after me.
But someone must have been from Stephen Ivers Studios there.
Me. I got cast. I auditioned at Tom's house.
Ken Lee.
Ken Lee, just recently passed. R.I.P. Ken Lee.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
No. Yeah, like 6 weeks ago.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Ken Lee was a early.
He was at that meeting.
He showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't remember who else was there.
And the first show was
The Problem. A.R. Gurney's The Problem. It was a 2-hander that we did in the basement of Voltaire. It was about a half hour long. Because at Voltaire, you got an hour-long slot, and you had to be able to set up, perform your play, and break down within the hour. So there were a lot of limits on what you were able to do.
Who was in that show? You directed it.
I directed it.
Why did you pick that show?
Because I could set it up, perform it, and break it down in 30 minutes. But I also really liked it because it was weird. Or I thought it was weird. It wasn't what it seemed. I was really interested in things that were, subverting conventions. So it was it looks like it's just this couple. It's like great short stories, how they have a twist, right?
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
it's like, oh, you think it's something, and then in the end...
And what was the cast? Who was in it?
Anthony, you should have made me prepare.
No, it's okay.
Remember.
Not remembering is actually part of the magic, right?
It's funny. What I remember is I worked with this woman named Gina, and her boyfriend Don was a graphic designer.
Yes,
and Don he had an office in the Flatiron Building.
What?
Yes. That was and it was the hippest, coolest thing in 1997 to have an office in the Flatiron Building.
In 2010, Collaboration moved into the Flatiron Building.
That's right. And it was and I remember going there and being this is so cool. I'm so cool. And Don was doing pro bono graphic design work.
I remember he did all those early.
He had really cool early posters and stuff.
And
that's what I remember.
Collaboration moved into the Flatiron in 2010, and we moved into part of the space was Stephen Ivage's old studio. Stephen Ivage was my acting teacher and guru.
Well, and the first meeting was at Urbis Orbis, also rest in peace. That was across the street on North Avenue.
Yeah.
Just east of the Damon Milwaukee North intersection.
Back when...
Which I think is now a gym.
Yeah. Well, no, it was a gym, and now it's not.
Now something else.
Yeah. But that's also where Real World Chicago.
Oh, that's right. Real World Chicago is filmed. That's right.
But
this podcast is turning into old people talking about things.
It's going to go fast. It's going to go fast. Well, people actually very much care about what Kimberly Senior has to say. So all of your family and your community, because you've mentored so many,
that is true.
The army of Kimberly. Hi, everybody. We're glad you tuned in. Maybe you'll learn something new about Kimberly. So, okay, and then Most Massive Woman wins.
That was our third show.
No, second.
That was our second
Beyond
show?
Therapy was the third show.
No, but Most Massive Woman Wins happened after I already knew you because, as you'll recall, it was at your birthday party in August that year. So Collaboration was started in March of the year that I met you.
96.
Right, 96 or 97?
96.
Okay, great. So in March, that was when the problem was. And then there was a second show.
With Deanna Davidson.
It was a one-person show. She was a teacher. Chicks.
Yeah, Chicks. That's it.
My
That's
gosh,
it.
great,
Okay. Chicks. Then Beyond Therapy.
Then
yeah. Okay.
Massive
Look at that.
Women.
Good thing we're recording this so we can write this down. The oral history, and then yeah. For me, I mean,
remember. To be fair, we didn't have computers. We didn't have phones. Like trying to find. But what I was going to say is, I do remember in the program for the first show, The Problem, that I wrote about this sort of mission, that why I wanted to start this theater company is that I wanted to make something that was for the people.
Yeah.
And that I wanted the audience to feel a stake in what it was that we were doing. And that what did that mean for an audience? Like, and what was that sort of like street to seat experience? Not just like come in and watch a play and go home, but that like stay after and talk about it, get there early. And I feel like that, when I think about that genesis, although it's obviously so different now, but through our iterations, like with Sketchbook, and we were like, no, we want people to like hang out and feel a stake in this and really belong here. And how are we creating an environment where we're creating community and creating conversation? And it wasn't necessarily a quote unquote politically motivated, although I do feel anytime you're putting something on stage, it's political, that like we've always been concerned about creating something where everybody feels like they belong. That has been always a value of ours, and we really did not want to make, and this is with all due respect for the many places that I teach and everything else, you know, I don't even have a BFA, let alone an MFA, and I know I might run an MFA program, but like, we didn't want to make something that felt theatery. We wanted to make something that felt alive and responding to the world we live in. That's always been a value.
And you know, in Chicago, back then, a lot of the theaters, they were formed by people that all went to the same university. And so there was this clickiness that if you didn't go to Northwestern, you were not going to work at Looking Glass. And if you didn't go to DePaul, you weren't going to work.
That's like one of the only theaters in Chicago where I've never worked. Looking Glass. I mean, with all due respect to the wonderful art that's been made there, but that was a, you know, thing of, I mean, and like even, and in the best of ways. I mean, like the House Theater was formed by, they all went with, I think SMU maybe they had all gone there.
Yeah.
And like they were making really cool art that was inspired by the art that they made there at school, and they evolved that. I mean, and I did knock on that door long enough that I did eventually work there. But I remember the deal that was being made at the time, Nathan Allen saying to me like, come play in our sandbox and you can play with our toys. And I was like, cool, I'm going to bring some of my toys also. You know, and that was a really cool thing. But that is the way so much art is made, by people who came up together. Remember, we used to call ourselves a team of mad scientists.
Well, but the thing about Collaboration is that I think, and in the early years, you know, you could come from anywhere. You just had to come.
Finance degree.
I mean, what's that song?
But it was just like sort of show up and there's a space for you. And I think too, something that that I thought was really cool that like we did, I think the Chicago community also supported and reflected this, but was bringing together artists of varying degrees of experience. Like we would have like really seasoned professionals working alongside of people who just like showed up, you know, and that what that conversation felt like, that there wasn't, you didn't need like a resume, that you could be amazingly talented and gifted, and it, you know, and now, you know, who I did a workshop with recently was Bubba Weiler.
Oh,
and,
wow,
you know,
yeah.
Bubba's like super accomplished, really, you know, he's like in his 30s now, by the way, which I was just like, that's illegal.
Yeah.
But, you know, Bubba did his like first show with us when he was like 10 years old, you know. And
yeah. Which one? You mean the Sketchbook?
Yeah,
or?
he was in the Sketchbook.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like Ray Gray.
Yeah.
I saw Ray Gray at the rap party for, you know, Power. Mm-hmm. Sandra was in that show.
Yeah.
With Joe Sikora.
Yes. Also.
The amazing Joe Sikora. and Ray Gray was like about to get married, and we hung out, and she pulled me aside and she's like, do you have any advice for me on my marriage? I was like, I do. I have no idea what I said, but she seemed to take it in. Or I don't want to say it on the radio, but it's I mean, the thing about Collaboration, especially in the early years, we were producing at Cafe Voltaire, which was a legendary basement theater studio that was not had no ADA or fire code. It was just like it was a real like old basement of a house almost on Belmont and Clark, across from the Pumpkin Donuts, and then we produced the.
And is that great Ethiopian restaurant still there, Mama Desta?
I don't know. I have no idea.
And how about the L&L Tavern?
No idea. Okay. No idea. But and then we started. We produced a one-act festival. The first one was just a fundraiser. Really, we did I don't even know what that was called. We did a fundraiser that was like 21 acts. I was in like 4 of them. And the Winged Man, Mark Hicks and Sandra Delgado, and and me and Paul Martin. No, me and Mark Hicks in a play directed by Paul Martin, written by G. Riley Mills.
That's right.
Who had a piece in the first sketchbook, which is wild. That now he's the one of my partners on Trial in the Delta. But then we did a one-act festival called No MSG Added.
That's what I thought the first one was called. Because we didn't know MSG Added 1 and 2.
No, but we did a fundraiser.
I remember how we came up with the No MSG Added title. Is that we were like sitting around talking about like what we wanted to do, and the phrase like about the poo-poo platter, the Chinese restaurant, that you could like spin the thing around. You're like, oh, I want a spare rib, or oh, I want an egg roll. Like that there was something for everyone on the poo-poo platter, which is how we came up with No MSG Added.
Because No MSG Added was a big thing back then. I mean, that was like MSG. Everyone,
it was like no monosodium glutamate, but it became from the idea of like eating at a Chinese restaurant.
There's a disconnect there if you don't know about the poo-poo platter and you just go, I'm going to a short play festival that doesn't have any added MSG. So what I remember,
and so funny is when I hear MSG, I think Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, of course. so then second, No MSG Added was in the basement of the Chopin Theater.
Correct.
And then
Free Enterprise was in that one, right?
Yeah.
Lou Saliba.
We're
dropping so many names.
Still doing it in LA.
Yeah.
And then No MSG Added turned into, essentially, we took it apart and put it back together, and that became the first sketchbook festival in January of 2000. And that was the first thing that I produced as artistic director. And my 25th anniversary as artistic director was last month. Wow. And away we went. And that also, in many ways, I think, you were liberated from the burden and the joy of being an artistic director, and really, started to soar. And your career has, it's just 200 productions. Yeah. Like we know, are you down to the point you're like, there's 12 states I haven't directed in. I need to direct them in all.
Totally, I know. I'm like, if anybody's listening, and I haven't been to Alabama. Like I have the places where I'd like to direct plays. But it's funny you say about being free from like the burden and joy of leadership. I also was a very bad leader. Like my early notions of leadership, I don't know, you probably wipe this from your memory, but like our company meetings were like 6 hours long. Because I was like, I think everyone needs to have a voice, and like everyone gets to have an opinion, and like this was like not really an efficient way to run things. And so
I do remember you being like, hold on, Bill, you haven't said anything.
Yeah.
What do you want to say? And Bill, would be like, well, the polar bear is special,
Yeah, I mean, this is really, I've learned a lot about leadership over that time, but there was just some of my values about, like, I think didn't extend to the efficiency in leadership. I mean, there's like stuff in my book about this too, but it's like I do try to run like a really open room, and all the spaces that I'm in, I try to have like that. But also, like, how do you put? People laugh sometimes because they'll hear me say, "Well, I welcome everyone's partnership on this." So it's like if I don't sort of frame something with like, "I would really like to invite your collaboration," that means please don't speak. You learn.
Yeah, you do learn, and like I look back at, I've learned so much about leadership and public speaking. And I mean, the first sketchbook is on YouTube, by the way.
What?
Yes.
That's wild.
And you can watch the pre-show speech that I give. It's
I'm sure it's 45 minutes long.
And it's just like, I look like Bambi. I'm like, I have these long arms. And
did you have long hair still then?
No, I had that. I had the what was it called? I don't remember. Over the ears, shag. I had a shag.
Yeah.
But it's so much better to just jump in and learn rather than to never jump.
Yes.
And
which has always sort of been our start before you're ready.
Yeah.
I mean, I also remember in the early years, I was, I think maybe the only one of us that had like a proper theater job because I was working at Steppenwolf.
Yeah.
In the offices.
And teaching speed reading.
Yes, and teaching.
Kimberly is the fastest reader I have ever met.
It served me very well in my theater career.
Yeah, and I'm a slow reader. I read the play at the pace at which it slower than it would be performed, I think. Like I envision the stage directions.
Getting all those submissions for sketchbook, and I'd be like, well, I read these 42 plays, and Anthony would be like, I read these 7, and we would figure it out. But I remember like we were already an organization, and I would be like like getting grants that Steppenwolf would like let me take, so that we could we'd be like, okay, how do we learn how to write a grant from reading this? Like everything we did was these like kids.
Yeah. With no internet,
we had no right.
And we had the internet, but the internet didn't have good copy.
Well, and then people didn't have stuff up on the internet.
Yeah.
Like maybe we just started to email or whatever, and it was how we learned was so just on our feet. There wasn't a proper way. You couldn't look up like how to run a theater company or how to get a 501c3 or how to,
And you couldn't read a book like what would a person do? Kimberly's thoughts on directing and living. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I read the book, and the directing section, the first section, like just to what you're saying, like if I had read this book when I was 25, and if you're an early career director, you should definitely get this book because she's passing on all kinds of gems in like 75 pages. And it's incredible. And I was like, as I read it, learning a lot and dotting the I's and T's from, what I know of you and how you've changed. And it's great. But, when I got to the living section, I was like, oh, now this is what I need, because it's packed with just great stuff. And I want to bring up a couple things. Yeah. But tell everybody about the genesis of the book, where they can get it, and what to expect.
So the book, you can get it, as Anthony mentioned, on Amazon. You can also, if you're here in Chicago, it's stocked at the Understudy. It's also, I believe, in the lobby of the Goodman Theater and Writers Theater, where I'm currently working, directing a play called Every Brilliant Thing, starring Broadway veteran and longtime Chicagoan Jesse Fisher, in a beautiful show that I feel is a total companion piece to this book, actually, which is about really how are we creating a world in which like joy and pain live side by side, and then we're able to kind of witness the extraordinary in all of us. It's a really beautiful play, and so those are the places you can get it. And the book started because
the show opens tonight.
It does open tonight.
Happy opening!
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I'm very excited. It runs until January too. But get there because it's already sold out through the end of November. Only 100 people can see it at a time, so it's a really special, intimate experience that harkens back, I think, so much to our own early days, and also the early days of Writers Theater, which started in the back of a bookstore. So,
you can direct, I think, any theater, but your intimate work is known to be spectacular, you know.
It's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
It's truly my favorite thing. And so the book started because it was sometime like 2017 or 2018 where I had some actors I was working with. They're like, "You really got to write a book." I was like, why? Why do I have to write a book? You know, in directors, we work in isolation, so you don't know that the things you say other people don't say, or the things you think other people don't think.
And the processes you've developed.
Yeah, I just kind of thought that was the way everybody did it. And so then I sent an email, crowdsourcing. This is just the story of my life is crowdsourcing. I sent an email to former students and collaborators, stage managers, stage managers, designers, actors. And I said, if there's something that like you quote of me that like you say that I say, or something that you think only I do, just like send me an email and let me know. And that's like the rudimentary beginning of the table of contents of this book. And then I started writing a couple of these I knew I wanted to be short essays, and I started writing them, and then I abandoned it because as a freelance director, I spent my entire life hustling. I didn't really have time and single mom, I didn't have time to like write a book of essays. I'm not an author. I have other things to do. And then during the pandemic, some former directing students were like, hey, let's like revisit your book, you know, maybe you should like write essays and we'll talk about them. So then I wrote a few more essays, and then also abandoned the task because the task of publishing felt too daunting, and trying to have to hustle as a writer felt too daunting, and I was just trying to stay afloat. And then, you know, when it sort of became a joke, like someone would say to me like, oh God, that thing you say is so smart. And I'm like, yeah, you can read it in the book, like the book that I hadn't written. And it was getting really self-deprecating about it. Like I knew I had it in me, but just couldn't get around to it. And
if you could write a tenth as fast as you read, you'd have that book done in like 2 hours.
So this friend of mine was like, kind of bullied me. It was a little bit like, I'm sick of you saying, oh, it's in the book. Like, why don't you just write this damn book? And really challenged me to get it done, and was there for me through a lot of the hurdles, because one of the things was this idea of being like a living document, was that I was like, well, one of the reasons I can't write the book is because I keep learning new things. And so I'm never going to be able to get to the end of it. And they were like, how about you just write the first edition, okay? And I already, in like the back of I don't think I brought my notebook, but I already have a list of, I think it's up to 14 more essays that will, that will go into what would a person do to Electric Boogaloo.
Nice. You could do an annotated version of your own book too.
Yeah, I mean, I think I will, because there's already things in here. I just on election day, after, you know, having a morning, I then in the afternoon recorded the book for audio, and it'll be released on Audible in a few months. I'm going to go do some pickups tomorrow morning. Oh,
you did do the book on Audible. No, I was just going to ask you when you're going to...
I did, with Misha Fixel, long-time collaborator.
Misha. Yeah, he a Tony Award winner, the amazing Misha. And...
one of our first DJs at Sketchbook.
The White Russian.
Yeah, DJ White Russian.
You know, I got to work with Misha again on La Habana Madrid at Pritzker Pavilion, which was amazing. And, you know, while you were talking... a vision of Ian Forster popped into my head, so I just have to shout out Ian Forster. He's not just a young puppy anymore. He's like a real dude doing VR work in California. But I'm so glad that you did, because I was thinking, you know, you have such a great voice.
Thank you.
And you're good at talking, and I just could imagine like this book on a car ride would be very exciting. But let's get...
And one of the things with the pickups I have to do is, like, it feels best when it feels like I'm talking to you. And, like, my favorite compliment I've gotten from it, you know, when people read the book is, it feels like hanging out with you. That's what I want it to feel like. I don't want it to feel like me teaching you. I want it to feel like we're in conversation. And so that's really my goal for it. But even in reading it out loud the other day, I was like, oh, I already want to change this. Like, there's things I already wanted to fix.
And, you know... Collaboration, you know, we make theater to inspire change, and I do think there's a lot of activist handbook things in the book.
Yes.
And not just on the living thing, because, you know, we all are a director. We all direct things. Whether we know it or own it is a whole nother story. Let's just start there quickly. What is the role of a director?
I believe a director is like a facilitator and a leader, and an agent to create change through conversation. I think that there's a huge responsibility and privilege in being someone who is telling stories, who's bringing people together in order to tell stories, and then that group of people is then putting it out to an audience to live and breathe in those moments and respond accordingly, and then take what they've learned out into the world. Before the advent of so many different ways of telling stories, theater is like the most ancient form of storytelling, taught people how to live. Right, we're watching the present and possible organization of our nature being played out in hypothetical stories, right? And that is, what happens if I act on an impulse? And then what are the consequences of those actions? And then we see those things play out for us. And so I think those things are still true. And in the greatest sense, we're creating public square because we're coming together live to witness it in a way that and I love film and TV, but you're getting to do that at home. And so here we have to go, you have to be with other people and experience it. And so we're crossing divides, we're creating community. And I think that is actually what the role of a director is, which I don't think everyone would define it that way. I think that's a specific thing for me.
Well, and I know you know this, what a lot of people don't realize is, especially with theater, you have a vision and an idea, you have a team. When it comes to actors, if you want them to do Y, you can't always tell them to do Y.
No.
And you have to figure out how to let them figure out how the character gets to that place. So there's this kind of, there's this wizardry in communicating with people, and every actor you have to talk to differently.
Yeah.
You have to build a personal vocabulary, and then you have to know what will get them there. And there are some actors where you just say, do this and do this, and then they go, got it, and they'll do it. And there's other ones that you say that do this, do that, and they won't do it because you told them to.
Yeah. Even
though they know you're the director. And so, or they'll do that, and then a week later it'll be gone. That's the other thing. It's all, it's ephemeral,
Well, it's like, remember being a kid and you're like studying a subject, and sometimes you're like studying for the test, and then you would like, even if you got an A on the test, then the information would like fly out of your head the next day. And so I think so much of like what directing is about inspiring the curiosity that leads to like an in-depth, integrated learning of something that is then like fully embodied so that its impact is longer lasting, whether that's like through the run of a show or the way that it's being, again, back to like learning for the test. You're probably not able to articulate or communicate that information to anybody else, right? You're just able to get it out in the test. So how are we then like teaching something that someone can then go make their own and communicate to another person?
Yeah.
I think is really cool and hard.
Yeah. Okay, the book.
Yeah.
Paul, how much time do we have left?
What do you think?
4 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Time goes fast.
It does.
Okay.
This is just like episode 1.
quick. Yes, true. But I want to get into some of these things. So maybe just 20 to 30 second.
Okay, great.
First, I think it's important to share your morning practice, because we're all going through a lot right now.
Yes. Every morning, I put my hands to my heart and I say kind actions, which I believe are the things that are led from our heart. I put my hands to my lips and I say kind words. And then I put my hands to my brain and say kind thoughts. And then I say to myself and to others. And that is a thing that is a mantra that I'm reminded of all day long in all the different spaces that I'm in.
Action is a really important word to you, isn't it?
It is.
And it's so important to be kind to ourselves and others.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, life can be tough, and there'll never be a better you than you.
No.
Be astonished. Never. What about that? I love that.
Yeah, I think so. Honestly, there's so much in the book that is about curiosity. I realized, like, in retrospect, when I was reading it the other day, I thought of this, like, how easy it is for us to become jaded and not be astonished. A dear friend of mine from childhood, her name is Andrea, and she is a breast cancer survivor. And every morning, Andrea takes hikes and before the sunrise and watches the sunrise. And when I was with her in Arizona and we were hiking, as the sun rose, she grabbed my arm and she said, "It does this every day." And I thought that was so beautiful about this, just awareness of things that we might not pay attention to. And so to give yourself the permission to be astonished, whether it's by the sunrise or by the like look in your friend's eye that you hadn't noticed before, or just any moment, to celebrate the extraordinary and the ordinary, and let it astonish you. Allow that space in, and be like, to know that that's like the coolest thing ever, that you're a cool person when you are astonished by the world around you. The feeling that something, I think that we have a terrible idea that to like be cool is to not let things astonish you. And instead I really want to reframe that and be like, actually, that's what makes you cool.
Well, and you're touching on two things, which is, the tourist and traveling, and like how you went to India, and it, and how we need to invest in travel. And actually, there's data that links age expectancy to travel. Travel keeps you young. And then also, there's one version of the clown, right? That every day the clown wakes up and everything is new. I try to, if I'm on the train, I'll be like, okay, pretend everything is new. Oh my God, look at this thing. Okay, what about the rule of three?
Right, so the rule of three is always be making your own art. And that does not mean that you have to be directing a play at the Goodman Theater to make your own art. That means like have an idea and carry it through. Arrange friends in your living room, shoot a video with your iPhone, that these things that knowing that creation is available to you at all times. And it doesn't require other people to do it. I published this book myself. Do it yourself, be tenacious in that way. And then the second thing is be in service of someone else's art. And that could be to go and help a friend make their iPhone video, to go give someone notes in rehearsal, to work in the box office, something that doesn't have to do with you. My directing students at Brooklyn College have to stage manage, right? So that you're there really serving someone else. And it's both the act of like being helpful and understanding that, but you're also able to be in a point of observation that you can't observe when you're making your own work. And you learn a lot in that way.
And that was an early collaboration thing, too, where you're like, I want everyone to do everything.
Every job.
Sandra stage managed three sisters.
That's right.
And,
yes. You have to do everything. And then the third thing is to do something that has nothing to do with theater. And that's really because I didn't do that very well in my younger years. And I think some of that is about like making friends who are nurses and police officers and people who do things that you don't do. And I think that makes our work better and creates our community better. And also that's who we're making the work for. And then I also think it's just about like skills, for me, it's often around sort of fitness and stuff that I'm doing, things that I'm doing with my body that have nothing to do with art, that feel really important to me, that give us a broader sense of perspective and who we are in the world. No one wants to make art and see art that's been made in a vacuum or staring at your belly button. You're not who you used to be. We already touched on that one. Yes. We actually touched on a few. I have other things here. I'm skipping over them. Yeah. Why we do it. Yeah, this is the activism part, and it's about in a world that is continues to be fractured, right? In that chapter I talk about is to be a human being is to be in crisis, and it draws upon what you were saying, Anthony, about like what has changed just because there's an election. Like there have been elections, there have been despots, there have been totalitarian regimes since the beginning of time, far longer than there's been anything that masqueraded as democracy. And so that means that our work is always essential. And, I was just saying to my students on Tuesday about like the necessity of being an agitator and a community organizer, and those things has often fallen on the artists and the thinkers, and like that's where we belong. And so that maybe in so doing we have a chance to heal and we have a chance to help, and that like it maybe is today the day that we start doing that. And like that's how I end the book, is saying like that's what a person would do, is to like take this one step in that direction of using our words and our stories and our empathy to create community. Beautiful. Thank you. They say, right, that the pendulum will swing and the tide will rise and the sun will rise. But the reality is actually that, the tides don't rise.
the earth spins into the water, and the water is there, and the water moves. The sun doesn't rise.
Right. We spin.
Yeah. And we're corkscrewing. And we don't have all of the answers, all we have is the now. And as theater artists, we embrace the now because that is our canvas, and it's already gone, which is great that we could spend some time and put on this digital archive.
Yes.
So that in 28 years from now, we can look back at, how quickly it all went and how many great moments and how much love and life we've lived. And I'm very grateful for our long relationship.
Me too.
And for your early leadership in the company and the way you represent Chicago theater, whether you're in, New York or LA, working
Arkansas,
on Audible or with Marvel. And I do want to, what do you want to leave us with here as we end our time? What's on your heart these days?
Don't despair. The past few days have been really disheartening in how many people are upset. And making this play that I'm making at Writers, which is really a community experience, and people are sad, and I get it, and I get sad, but that this is the moment that we actually get to appreciate our connections, and we get to be astonished by all of the great gifts that exist. And I do believe that good is exponential and hope is exponential, and that is these are our moments for solidarity and community and connection, and to not feel alone, that it will get better, and that we will be the agents of that betterness. It's a perfect time for Collaboration. It really is. Kimberly Senior, thank you for joining us on Collaboration Radio. I love you. I love you. And, keep rocking, and I'll do the same. And maybe one of these days we'll work on a show together again. Yes, let's do it. All right. Take us out, Paul. Oh, yeah, there we go. Collaboration Radio. Come on, Kimberly, drop a rhyme. God, don't make Drop a beat. Yeah. Get off your feet. Let's go. Hey, R.I.P. Ken Lee. Sorry you had to find out that way live on the air. That's okay. Yeah, Harry Rader going to his memorial next weekend. Yeah. Yo. Life is short. Life is short and precious, and before we know it, it'll be 4 years from now. We'll have a new president in office, and kiss your babies. 1,457 days or something. It says here at the station. Yeah. Wait, Harry Rader died?